Man, it's all that. Just follow the order.
I can do this. It's been a while.
I know.
It's getting anxious.
I've had so many people on, man. There's been Nick, there's been Marie, there's been Ben, Jose. Hi and welcome to the We Need Roads podcast, and it's an old school episode tonight as I'm joined by my original gangster co-host Mr. David Long, who has finally escaped his horror dungeon where he's been forced, not against his will, to almost solely watch horror films and play Baldur's Gate 3 since the last time we heard from him. David,
Play
how have
what?
you been?
Gate 3?
Baldur's Gate 3.
There we go, Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah. You said it funny. You just said it funny. I'm cool, man. I'm good. I like that I'm a gangster. I think I'm the least gangster person that you'll ever meet. But I like that
you're the OG co-host, man. So OG.
Yeah, me and We Needed Roads go way back. It's almost like co-founder.
Co-founder.
There you go. I like that. Co-founder.
Legacy member.
I remember the day sitting on the tube train. Hey Neil, do you fancy starting up a podcast? Yeah, man. Fuck, did I know the box of rats or whatever the phrase is that I'd unleashed?
Box of frogs.
This is why, I'm so glad that Ben and Jose have come in, because it's fucking impossible to keep up with you.
I mean, I watch a lot.
It's insane. You're at the cinema every day.
I did do 1 week where I went 4 times.
It's not humanly possible to keep up with the content.
I give it a good go.
Give it a good go, man. It's impressive. I feel like the listeners appreciate it.
As per your personal brand, David, even though Halloween was over a month ago as we record this episode is kind of a horror special. And we'll be talking to the Hand with Aussie Horror Talk to Me, going back in time to the 80s for Prime Video's Totally Killer. We're going to return to Oz, but not Wizard of Oz spin-off, as David reviews Aussie Horror Lake Mungo. And we get trapped in a tower block of deadites in Lee Cronin's Evil Dead Rise. And as we rise, we fall with David's main horror man crush, Mike Flanagan's Fall of the House of Usher. And finally, I'll make you a believer in that this film should never have been made, with a classic Neil rant about David Gordon Green's The Exorcist Believer. Also, as we like to throw stuff in last minute, we're going to have a quick look at the new Ghostbusters Frozen Empire trailer as well. So buckle in, as we're going to be talking spoilers for pretty much all the films and shows above.
Spoilers? Where we're going, there are nothing but spoilers.
So, speaking of desiccated husks, that's you, David, because you've not seen Daylight.
I was going to say that made no sense. Speaking of desiccated husks, but you didn't mention desiccated husks.
My order was a little bit wrong there. So, yes.
What was the question? Sorry,
I don't know. It doesn't work. It was supposed to be a clever line into Talk to Me.
You were saying that I was a desiccated husk because I've been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate, right? That's where we were getting.
Sitting in a dark room, like a plant that needs sunlight and plant
my
food.
little half-orc barbarian named Bardock. I want to get him out there. Bardock's going to be famous.
Hashtag Bardock.
Yep, he's. We need to save Bardock at the moment. He's not in a good state.
Right. Well, from Bardock to that doesn't work either. We're going to talk, David. Talk to
the Hand, and we're talking to the Hand.
Talking to the Hand.
There we go.
Talk to Me, which is the debut film from Aussie brothers Danny and Michael Philippou, who made their name from their YouTube channel Raka Raka, which they've been running since 2013, which specialised in horror comedy videos. Now, the basic setup of the film involves a group of Aussie teens who have somehow acquired a real desiccated hand that will let spirits possess you for around 90 seconds, and then you have to blow out a candle and break the connection, because I'm sure nothing totally horrific happens if you don't do it after 90 seconds. Right, David?
Yep, nothing totally at all. I didn't know that they had their YouTube channel. So similar to the guys that did like the Scream film and
Radio Silence.
Radio Silence. Yeah. No, I didn't realize that was educational. Thank you, Neil.
Well, I argue you should go and have a look at their channel sometime, but not right now in the middle of the podcast.
Yes. I love a horror film that comes along like this, out of the blue, that you've never heard of the guys before, and it's an instant classic.
As the Aussies say, it kicks you in the dick.
Yes, I didn't know they said that.
It's the same.
But yeah, yes, it does. It kicks you in the dick. What the thing that I love most about it is I love a horror that you can take out the horror element of the film and replace it with what it is blatantly representing, and it's still a good film. So that's what I loved most about this film. So all of the horror elements and all like the little scares that we're going to go through, it's all drugs. The whole film's just about drugs and the dangers of drugs. That's how I saw it anyway.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you on that, man.
Scene by scene of each horror moment, or not even the horror moments, like near the end of the film, where the guy's just like, "Here you go," and it's like diminished responsibilities from the people that introduced them to the drug in the first place. Like all of it, like all throughout the film, it's just like one. You could just replace all of the horror with drugs, and I really liked that. And it's not often that a horror film comes across where it's that like obvious, like that shot for shot.
I mean, when I saw this, man, I saw it early because I saw a secret screening, and again, after that initial scene with the horrific violence at the party with the Buckler brothers, we lost about 20 people, just got up and left. I was
like, this shit ain't for me. I'm out of here.
Once that happens, I was like, right, well, once the initial stabbing's over, that's them gone. But then people kept leaving throughout the film, which I just didn't get. Like, if you know what the film's going to be pretty early on, and it's only a 93-minute film, but people were leaving like an hour into the film. 4 people got up and left. I was like, how would you, at this point, do you not know what the film is? Like, it's almost over. Like, we literally got one act left to go.
At that point, yeah, you're building up to the final act as well. That is bonkers, leaving with 30 minutes left.
I mean, yeah, I'm just looking at my notes, man, and like you nailed it there where you said the obvious connection between teen drug use and the hand. You know, the hand gets them high, and they love how high they get from the hand. And also, it's got that nice little element of obviously what the modern day teens do. They love putting videos of shit on social media. So I love that the fact you've got this like haunted hand, and they're putting videos of them fucked up on social media, which was I think was like a nice thread to like modern day in it as well.
Yeah, fucking kids, man. Kids are the worst. Shit they get up to.
I've mentioned it before. There's a book called Hex by this young Dutch author, and it's very similar. Have you got it? Yay!
Yeah, I've got it. I've not read it, but I do have it based off your recommendation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I say, the basic setup is quite similar in that you've got these kids who film a ghost and stick it on social media, and then all hell breaks loose, literally, which is great. Social media is not bad. We love our Twitter followers, and we'll stop slagging off social media. My next note says, "Poor Riley, kid gets the fuck smashed out of him repeatedly."
Yeah. Well, again, peer pressured into taking the drug, or feeling left out. Everyone else is having a good time. Big sister's like, "No, mate, you know what? This is dangerous. You don't want to do it." And he's like, "Nah, but it looks so much fun. Look how much fun everyone's getting high as fuck on possession." And yeah, I want to do it. Dude, made me think. Mm-hmm. Would you have done it? Would you have held the hand and said, "Talk to me"?
Probably not, because I'm not. Yeah,
fuck no, man. I'm getting the fuck out of there. The second one person is like, you see it, and then they go possessed, and you actually see it happening right in front of you. Nah, not even if they say it was like the best freaking high of your life. No chance. But have you ever done like a Ouija board or anything like that?
No. To be fair,
nothing. No. No, neither have I. I think if I was to do a Ouija board, though, I'd definitely be that person that's moving it.
See, I think
that moves the thing to just mess with people.
I think a lot of that stuff, and I'm sure there's a million opinions on both sides of it. I think a lot of that kind of stuff is how susceptible you are to it in the first place. If you're going to walk into a Ouija board and just be like, "No, it's not going to work. It's not going to work." If you believe in thinking something is going to happen, something's going to happen.
I feel like with the Ouija board, they're reliant on people fucking with other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so you've got like a group of people there, and then there's that one person that's going to move it just for shits and giggles, which is what I think I'd be. I think I'd be that person.
Mr. Shit and Giggles.
Yeah. No, I don't think I'd actually do it. It's scaring me too much. I've seen too many horror films, man, to mess with that shit.
I imagine you have, man. I mean, what struck me early on in this was the tonal shifts in it. Like, when it starts off, it's like, oh, it's like a teen stoner comedy in Australia. And then shocking violence. And then it goes back to, like, after what happens with the brothers at the start, we then jump forward a little bit, and it's more teen stoner comedy. I was like, oh, okay. And then extreme violence again. So it kind of walked this really weird tonal shift, but I kind of got into it as the film was going. I was like, okay, let's go with it. I mean, for a low budget, no name horror, the acting as well is really good in this throughout. I thought the lead actress Sophie Wilde, who plays Mia, she was really, you don't get performances that good generally in like low budget debut horror films, do you? Admittedly, though, it's an A24 film, which they clearly scouted and they went, "This film's fucking good. Let's pick it up and release it." I think that's the way they did it because I think these guys obviously, I don't know how it was funded that way, but I'd imagine they pretty much made it themselves, and then A24 was like, "Yeah, we'll release it. That kind of fits our brand." And elevated horror, David, one of your favourite phrases. Is it? Is it not?
No, it's not one of my favourite phrases because I feel like elevated horror
It's a stupid
is
phrase.
always been there. Well, it's just there's always been elevated horror. It's what annoys me about it is that it's a phrase that's only come about of the last 10 years.
I wouldn't even say that. I'd say last decade tops, mate. And it's just basically because people couldn't really find a way to critically analyse films with people like Ari Aster and Robert Eggers properly.
Yeah, and so, but like, I don't know if you used the audio of me going on the rant that I sent you for the Wicker Man podcast about elevated horror.
Probably, yeah. I mean, if it fitted,
yeah, basically, I'm saying, like, you know what, films like Rosemary's Baby, films like The Wicker Man, films like Don't Look Now, films they're there throughout the history of horror. Why is it that are they all of a sudden categorized as elevated horror?
No.
So, yeah, that's
lazy critics, man. Lazy critics. That's what come up with the phrase.
No, I agree with you with the performances from all of the actors. I don't think there was a weak performance from any of them.
And the mum, she was from Lord of the Rings, wasn't she?
Was she?
Yes, I'm sure she was. Miranda Otto, who was
Eowyn. Oh, yeah.
Of course, she didn't have the Aussie accent.
She was. You know what? I didn't know that at all. I can see it now. She was a hard-ass Australian mum. I wouldn't want to... she was the kind of mother that you would not want to mess around with her daughter.
As I think most of the characters realised as the film went on. The toe-sucking scene, man, you should have seen the reaction in the audience that was left for that. That just weirded people out.
Yeah, that was the one. So the only negative I'd have with this film was it wasn't actually scary at any point. There wasn't, like, for a horror film, there was no actual scares in it. That doesn't make it bad. It just wasn't actually that scary. I suppose the scares came more from
the sudden violence,
the idea of where the boy was kept in possession. Similar to a film that we're going to talk about later. But it wasn't actually scary. But the scene where the toe sucking lady sort of creeps out from the corner. Where how many times are you sitting there overnight and you see like a weird shape in the corner of your room, and it's normally
like that one behind you there to the right,
and it's normally some sort of jacket that you've just not bothered putting away properly, and then it slowly moves out, and you're like, oh, but then it keeps going, and it goes up to the person, and then it starts sucking on their toes, and you're like, yeah, okay, this got weird quite quick. Should we talk about the ending real quick, actually, before we talk about what I want to say about the toe sucking lady?
Okay,
we find out that Mia does she commit suicide or is she pushed? It's a bit ambiguous, actually, as to how she dies.
I think it's ambiguous, isn't it? Yeah. But she wants to, because she thinks that's the only way she can stop it.
Yeah. Which is to save the boy, because he's been possessed.
Well, that's kind of similar, isn't it, to the original Exorcist, where the girl's possessed and the father character's like, come into me, take me. And then he throws himself out the window to stop the spirit spreading anywhere.
Yeah.
She does something similar here, where she's trying to get the spirit out of her, the possessed thing out of her brother, and then it's implied that she throws herself into the traffic. But then again, yeah, for me, the end. So many horror films have a great setup, especially low budget ones, unlike debut films. They have a great setup, they have a good couple of scares, and you think, but the endings are pretty much predictable, or I fucking love the endings of this film. I thought it was one of the most clever, original endings I've seen in ages. So many horror films don't stick the landing. Well, we're like this. They go for the cheap jump scare ending. There'll be a flash of something or an intent. This one just went, no, she's not actually in a hospital bed. She's dead. And she is now one of the spirits because she died with that thing. When she wakes up and she appears at the house party in Greece and someone takes her hand and says, I let you in. I loved it, man. I was like, that just bumped it up at least a star for me there.
Yeah, it was excellent. And you've got no idea, like, like what time or anything's happened in between.
No.
She's just, there's obviously the concept of time is just fucking diminished to her, and she's just left in this void of space.
Well, yeah, because she
Hand
dead.
appears, yeah. So with the toe, go back to the toe sucking scene. Now that
Okay.
we've established that that these are just regular people that have died.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that ghost wants to do is suck that man's toes is a little peculiar. You know, she doesn't have any messages to send, or she doesn't have anything she wants to say. She just wants to suck on some
I
tootsies.
feel like you're a bit more interested in that scene than I am, David.
Well, like, you know, some of the other ghosts that turn up, they've got stuff that they want to say. You know,
Mhm.
like the earlier possession stuff before there's the montage, the drug-fueled montage of possession. We're going through, and there's the one that's quite like the first one, the initial one is quite scary, where she's looking at the bloke and what was she saying constantly to him? Like, run or hide, run or something, isn't it? It's all a bit fucking weird. But there's like a message behind what this ghost's saying. And then, yeah, there's the ghost that just wants to suck on some toes.
I mean, that's going to be the clip for the episode right there, isn't it?
Sucking on toes.
Well, anyway, this film was a massive hit for A24, making over 90 million on a £4.5 million budget. $4.5 million, making on a $4.5 million budget. Now, currently, it's A24's highest grossing horror film of all time, and the second biggest grossing film of all time, obviously behind Everything Everywhere All at Once. And yes, there is a sequel in development, David, and it's called Talk to Me. Still. But with a 2. Talk to me, yeah.
Right. I kind of wish that wasn't a thing. You know what I'm like with things that make money. Just leave them be to have a legacy on their own.
I'd like the idea of this sequel, especially if it continues Mia's story as a spirit. I think that would be a really clever way to go.
You know it won't, though.
No, it won't. It's going to be... Well, I don't know. No, hey, let's not write them off. They've made one really good film, and they've even made a prequel film already.
Is this was this set on the YouTube channel, and was this before or after?
I don't know about the YouTube channel, but it's kind of like a proof of concept for the film. They made all these social media videos of like the fake possessions and that.
Okay.
And would just drop them online with no context, so people would think it was real. So I love that kind of thing, that they kind of Blair Witched it in the modern day with, like, you know, these social media. Apparently, some of the videos were that disturbing. People, they got pulled off streaming platforms.
Some of them are fucked up because our eyes, obviously, pupils dilate, much like taking certain drugs.
But the prequel idea is that it deals with the Duckett brothers who we meet at the party in the original scene, in the first scene. And yet that film's primarily constructed through social media posts and mobile phone footage. So I'm quite interested in seeing that. Yeah. I mean, it's a clever idea. And I think it was that kind of got them onto doing Talk to Me, as like, you know, the development of that.
Do you agree with me, though, that it wasn't very scary?
I think you've watched so much horror recently, David, that you've become desensitized.
No, because I actually get proper spooked out still from horror films, like the first Hell House film the other day. And when I was watching that, thinking that wasn't very scary, but then at night time I'm there like under the covers thinking, oh, I fucking hope that clown ain't about.
Again, you're thinking about it afterwards. So if you're thinking about it afterwards, then that's good, because it means it's made an impression on you.
Yeah, right? Exactly. But I wasn't thinking about this afterwards from a scare perspective. I was thinking it from a, oh, that was a link to drugs. Oh, that was a link to drugs. Oh, there was that one that was a link to drugs. Oh, it's clever that the guys that introduced them to drugs like just completely diminish responsibility. Yeah, and some Tootsie sucks. But it wasn't. I went up at night thinking, oh, I hope that ghost doesn't come and suck on my toes. I had to put toes in there real quick.
To be fair, it sounds like you have, because just most amount of toe sucking we've
I've woke
ever
up to
had
Cheddar
mentioned.
licking my feet before, but not anything else.
For the viewers who may have
information
forgotten,
there,
Cheddar is David's dog.
Yeah, probably a bit too much information there.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say this is one of the year's best horror films and a great debut from the Philippou brothers. And just like Emperor Palpatine, we'll be watching their careers with great interest.
On to the next film.
Next, a slice of comedy with our horror as Sabrina goes 80s, as Kiernan Shipka continues her path to becoming this generation's Sarah Michelle Gellar, as she stars in Totally Killer, a film that markets itself quite loftily, I think, in its own mind, as Back to the Future meets Scream. Lofty goals when you consider both are our respective favourite films of all time, David. Will it live up to those lofty ambitions? We will see. But first, the basic plot.
Okay.
And that story is, it follows teenager Jamie Hughes, played by Shipka, whose mother's friends were killed by a serial killer 35 years ago in 1987, which is terrible because I was alive in 1987 and just makes me feel really old. In the present day, the killer finally kills Jamie's mum and then goes after her. Luckily for Jamie, she manages to escape the killer into her friend's handily assembled time machine and gets sent back to 1987, where she has to befriend her mum, who is a total 80s cliche bitch, and try and stop the murders taking place. So what we get is a lot of Jamie looking at 80s behaviour through a modern day lens that does give some comedy, but the film is very, very predictable and none of the cast really stood out for me. In fact, the film has slipped from my memory so much already, I only saw it a few weeks ago. David, was there memorable kills in this? What can you tell me about this film? Because you've seen it more recently than me.
I agree. I 100% agree with you that it was predictable.
Yeah.
Like, it was so predictable to the point I actually wanted... I'd have kicking myself that I didn't do it because I'd have been like, freaking called it. I was going to text you about 10 minutes into the film and be like, I bet you it's this guy. And that was no. That was the principal.
Oh, the principal, because there's two killers.
The principal, and then I was going to be like, and then after they gone back in time, and I realised it was a whole time travel film because I went into it blind. I didn't go into it.
You didn't know it's time travel?
No, I didn't. I didn't have a clue that it was even.
Did you like that when it happened? You was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Or...
Yeah, I did. I quite liked it. Like you said, it was a Back to the Future meets Scream. I mean, it didn't hit the heights of either, but you can appreciate it for at least doing what it done.
I can see the writers, I can see the producers or the writers pitching it, going, so it's Back to the Future meets Scream. Here's some money, go make it.
Yeah,
we need more money than that.
Tell me no more.
Yeah,
Both of those are famous franchises. You put them together, it's a fucking genius idea. But yeah, like the second they went back in time, I was like, okay, the podcaster's going to be a second murderer because I was going to text you it and I was going to say, I bet you it's this guy, and then I was going to follow it up with, I bet you it's this guy, and I bloody wish I did it because once I finished the film, it was exactly what happened.
Yeah,
like bang on, and it was so.
Yeah, it was so predictable, man.
So I didn't think it would be the podcast guy right off the beginning. I thought it would be the principal right at the beginning.
Well, it was the principal, but later.
Yeah, but I thought yes, but I didn't. So I didn't think the podcast guy because I thought that was almost too obvious.
No, they went there,
and I was like, nah, that's kind of too obvious to be the podcaster. Like almost like he's going as a red herring.
I feel like they had like the basic idea and didn't really develop it from that. Like, there's so much more cooler stuff they could have done, especially like the needle drops. There was not that many great catchy songs in it from the 80s. Which were memorable. I mean, I couldn't name you one.
I can't remember a single song that was good in it now. I can remember some of the deaths though, or like some of the scenes.
So what was best death?
Best death was the bloke probably being stabbed live on TV through the head at the very end, literally the last death in the film.
Oh, right, yeah.
That I quite liked that one because kind of came out of nowhere a little bit.
In the big machine there, swirling around in at the end, and the guy just kind of basically gets liquefied on that.
Does he get liquefied, or does he just fall out? See, that's how unmemorable that death was.
I know, it's very unmemorable, sadly.
I mean, we're making it sound like I hated this. I quite enjoyed it when I watched it.
It's an easy watch,
It was
right?
a fun, yeah, that's it. It's a fun, easy watch that you can just throw on. You don't really have to pay much attention to. It's that kind of horror film.
I got one more sort of negative on it before I get to my positive. Which was,
okay, go on then.
Just the throwaway way. The throwaway way? Yep, that's two words that shouldn't go together, but they are. The throwaway way, Jamie's friend Amelia just makes a time machine from its photo booth. And again, at least use some stolen plutonium, girl. I mean, Jesus.
It was kind of just like, yeah, I'm building a time machine. He's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, cool. I can't get it to work, though. Oh, no worries. That's a shame.
Let's try stabbing it.
Yeah, well, that's, yeah. The extra metal, whatever, as a conductor. Perfect. You know what? Let's not go into the science of it because obviously the science doesn't exist.
You needed a bit more than that. I did like, though, I really thought the ending was really good. I love the cause and effect when it's revealed Jamie has an older brother called Jamie. So she's actually now called Colette. I thought that was really funny. I thought, okay, do you know what? You've not really had me through most of it, but that is genius. And it's very similar to the Back to the Future ending.
Yeah, and that was because the parents met earlier, wasn't it? Yeah, in high school. So they had a high school child, and then,
And that's exactly the same as Back to the Future, where Marty makes the changes to his parents meet in the first place, and it impacts their lives positively. So the same as here. So I kind of like, okay, do you know what? You've nailed the ending there. I thought the ending was really good. But just the rest of it, I was like, oh, no.
The killer was ultimately quite bland as well. Like, the mask and the outfit, it's just like a white man mask, basically.
It's like if
Um,
I don't think you've seen it yet, David, but when you get around to seeing The Blackening, the killer in that is so obvious. So obvious. Like
yeah,
the
but
first time you see the
I
character, you're
think
like,
with that
you're the
it's
killer.
meant to be obvious because of
No.
I haven't seen it, but from what I've heard, I don't know who the killer is,
No.
but from what I've heard, it's meant to be obvious. Like to the
Okay.
point where, do you know, like where a villain can't use an iPhone in a film, like it's contractual. The killer in that film isn't using an iPhone. Like, is that sort of obvious?
I never knew that little factoid there.
Yeah. You the killer cannot have they're not allowed to use iPhones.
Well, I think this about rounds us up on Totally Killer. So I think for me, we can say Totally Killer is totally average, but it is a fun, easy way to pass the time. It's not that long. But, David, if you want a similar film and an idea done much, much better and funnier with a much better cast, then let me recommend to you 2015's The Final Girls, which has quite a similar plot where Tessa Vermiga's Max, who loses her B-movie horror star mother in a car accident, goes to a screening of her mother's film, and she and her friend somehow end up in the film. However, this film has a much stronger cast. You've got Adam Devine, Thomas Middleditch, Alia Shaka, and Nina Dobrev. It's also much more cutting in the way it sends up the 80s slasher genre, while still having a really well-developed story of mother-daughter bonding, but that's surprisingly emotional as the film goes on. And it's better than what we get in most serious horror movies. And the comedy touches in it, man. This is, I think it's like a blueprint for a horror comedy. You know, when they first realise they're in a film, they wait 90 minutes to see what happens, and the van with their parents goes in past them, and it just starts again. I love that. And then, they ask, why are we in black and white when they go into a flashback? What's happening? One of the characters trips over a subtitle. I mean, for me, this is a massively underappreciated...
I have seen the film, yeah. I think it actually suffers from the same issue that Totally Killer has, in that it's not very memorable. Because I didn't remember any of those things that you just said, but I have definitely seen the film.
I just think it's better acted. I just think it's better scripted. It's a very similar idea. Someone that goes back in time has to save their mum from being murdered. But there's no real relationship between her and her mother established.
Was her mum a porn star, or she was doing a porn scene?
B-movie actress.
Scene? Oh, okay. Was she doing a sex scene? Or
she's supposed to have one, isn't she?
In the film. See, that's the problem I'm having. I know I've seen the film, but I can't remember specific points. I mean, maybe I should just watch it again.
Just watch it again, man. It's very good. I think the second time round, I just loved it because I just you can see how well it's put together. The killer doesn't actually kill them near the start because he's not there for them. So, like, Thomas Middleditch's character is just walking up and grabs the guy's knife and oh, look, corn syrup. No, that's blood. Things like that. Just waiting 90 minutes for, the film to start again was a brilliant idea. And again, great ending where they wake up in hospital and they do the Halloween 2. So they didn't actually escape the film. They've just made it through to the sequel. But there's never been a sequel to the film. And of course, with that cast now, you're probably not going to get them back, especially with it being 2015. But again, great film, man. So yeah, if you like Totally Killer, great. It's a good average, easy film to watch. But then go and seek out The Final Girls wherever it's streaming and watch that too, because it's like it, but better. Now, from a horror comedy to a film that is, well, not very funny at all, David, from what you've told me about it. And that is the film I didn't get around to seeing in time, but you were really high on. So sell me on Lake Mungo and why it struck a chord with you.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about Lake Mungo about 6 months ago when I went through my little phase of about a week. I had like a week off work or something, and nothing was going on. So I watched horror films back to back every day, and I think I went through about 22 or something horror films in 5 days. And Lake Mungo is one of those films, and it's the one that stood out the most out of those 22.
Wow!
And it is it's another Australian horror film, Neil.
Right.
And it's a found footage horror film, but in the style of a documentary. So the daughter of a family, she drowns. Whilst
sadly.
Sadly drowns. Sorry, I don't know why I said that so happily. Whilst on a swimming trip with her family. And there's a documentary that goes into her death and sort of some of them are really mysterious things that happen leading up to it. So her brother sort of sets up cameras around the house to record some footage, and he takes photographs and he's developing photographs, and he starts seeing these sightings of Alice in the video footage and in the photography. And during the film as well, there's all these like gorgeous sweeping shots of
Australia.
of the house. No, not of Australia, of the house.
No.
So there's
Right.
like it's all, like if you was just to put like really happy, whimsical like property music over these footage, you'd think nothing of it. You'd think it was a really good property tour. But because you've got like the creepy tone of the film, this all these sweeping shots are really quite like tension building, and you feel like something's going to pop out at you at any second whilst this is all happening. But so basically, the film turns out, and all like these sightings that are happening constantly. So there's a shot of Alice that's turned up in a photograph of just the garden, and she's there, and you're like, oh fucking hell, there she is. And there's like all the talk between the family about that and how it's all impacting them. And then there's like video footage, but it's one of those films where all this happens, but then it's directing you to look one way, but then there's something else that's happening elsewhere on screen.
Because the twist in all of this is, David,
that it's a hoax.
Yeah.
That is one of the moments.
Readings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like
so it's not as obvious as that.
It's not really, because there's also like other things that are happening, like with the neighbor. There's also like what Alice was doing with the neighbor, and there's Alice sees herself back at Lake Mungo, which is why it's called Lake Mungo. And there's this, which is the most fucking scary moment in the film, and it genuinely is freaking horrible, where she sees basically herself with this like fucking disfigured, bloated, blown up face. That is the pinnacle moment in the film where you're like, that's fucking scary. And you know how found footage is, how you know, basically how found footage works. The build up to that moment and it's how it's shown is so good, man. But yeah, it's a hoax, and but twist is, if spoilers, is that Alice was there amongst all of it.
Yeah.
You just never saw her. Like you did see her, she was there.
The ending goes back and shows you the same pictures and bits of video, and they show you her there. And I believe the last shot is as the family are going out of the house. You see her there in the house looking out.
Yeah, in the window.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the one in the photograph, which is like, you see so many times this photograph, and then you see her in the corner of it, like, and you're like, fucking hell. It's one of those where you once you've seen the film, you want to then rewind it to see if she actually was there in all of these moments.
I actually want to watch it more now, knowing it, bizarrely, having it spoiled for me, which is bizarre because usually I hate that. But it wasn't high on my list of stuff. I was like, oh yeah, it's a slow burn Aussie horror film. I saw the trailer. I was like, yeah, it looks fine. I know they were, but then when I started reading it, I read up on it. I thought, do you know what? I'm going to read up on it just because I might not have time. And I found where it was on to watch, and I watched it. I cheated. I watched just the end of it because I'd read the notes on it, and I was like, okay, that's really cool. The ending is a really cool ending. But now I actually want to go back, so I do want to watch it. So even though I still haven't seen it and I know everything about it, I do want to watch it now, David. So it's on the list.
It genuinely, I think it's one of my favorite found footage horror films that I've ever seen. Better than the Blair. Yeah, better than the Blair Witch for me. Better than that Hell House, which I just watched, which was very good. Better than a lot of them. Better like the VHS films. Better than
Better Call Saul.
As Above, Far Below, or
the French one, that was quite good.
Yeah, that's pretty good, yeah, as well. But I really liked this film. Not only was it scary, it was thought-provoking, and it made you feel just the twist at the end. I mean, it's spoiled now for everybody, but
it's a spoiler podcast, mate.
But it was so good, man. But it was one of those where you don't want to spoil the twist, because if you go into it not knowing it and you have that epiphany, and then you're like, fucking hell, yeah, and then you do want to just look at it and see the film back again and be like, oh, there she was there. The only thing I would say about this is that because it's I think because it was released in 2009, I don't think it was meant to be seen on like a 50-inch screen. So a lot of the found footage moments, you do notice the other person in the corner,
right,
before, like, especially in the video footage. Not so. I didn't notice her in the photograph, but in the video footage, like, it's obvious where you're meant to look, whether directing you to look. But because it takes some time to get there, you do sort of, your eyes do like look around the screen, and you do notice the other moments that come up later on in the film. Like, oh, there's somebody else there, or there's something happening over here, and I feel like that's because this wasn't meant to be seen on a 50-inch screen in 2009. This was meant to be seen on like a a much smaller screen. So yeah, my final thoughts on Lake Mungo, and the only other thing that I really wanted to say was that the writer-director, Joel Anderson, he'd like done this, wrote and directed this film, and then he just vanishes.
What?
He's just gone. He's disappeared, mate, off the face of the earth. It's quite... I mean, I feel like that adds just like an extra spooky layer to the whole thing, to this whole film, because he's just got... I'm on his IMDb page now, and he's cropped up again since as a script editor on a TV miniseries called Clickbait.
Yeah, so he's alive, David.
So but is he though? Like, what's happened to him? What was happening to him in that time?
He's done stuff. He's alive. He's not just.
I feel like if you'd done that, if you were, I mean, Lake Mungo, it was good, and then the man just vanished.
You need to do an episode where you track down and find out what happened to Joel Anderson.
He got lost.
He had some bad encounters with a tip nipper.
Okay. Well, anyway, watch Lake Mungo.
So, David loves Lake Mungo. Next holiday destination?
Nah, man. I ain't getting on a flight for that long. Jesus, the scariest thing in my life is a plane.
Well, one of the scariest things, David, arguably in a lot of people's lives, was Evil Dead. And recently dropping on Netflix, which you've watched the first 7.5 minutes of.
I did a lot of work to that one.
To be fair, you did fit in our final film we're going to talk about as well, which was good. So, and that is Lee Cronin's Evil Dead Rise, the first film to take the Evil Dead franchise and place it in a modern-day urban setting. It was still produced by Robert Tabor, Sam Raimi, and Bruce Campbell, so it did have the franchise creators' blessings. So, your basic story is that guitar tech Beth visits her tattoo artist sister Ellie in her very shitty LA apartment building, where Beth is a single mum to 3 kids. There's an earthquake, and then the oldest kid, Danny, finds an underground chamber where he finds some vinyl recordings and a strange book. I wonder whatever that could be. Also, there's an opening prologue and an epilogue set at a cabin in the woods, but really it doesn't serve any other purpose than giving us a really cool opening shot and title drop. And that's it. I was just like, when we kind of come up to the bit towards the end of the film again, and we're not going to do full spoilers here because obviously David is still to watch it, but I think the epilogue wasn't really needed, because so much happens during the course of the film in the apartment to these characters. You're like, oh yeah, I forgot that there was an opening at a lake and a whole bunch of different characters that are in no way connected to what we've just seen. So I felt like they just really needed to go, okay, we need to pay lip service to, it being the cabin in the woods. It would have made sense if it had started at the cabin in the woods, right? And then a character brought it from there into the city. But as you find towards the end of the film, the cabin in the woods scene at the start of the film happens after the events of the film. So I was just like, I think they kind of got it backwards there in the way they kind of did it.
I've watched the opening
You've seen that scene?
Yeah. So I've seen the opening scene. I've seen the title drop, and that was awesome. I mean, even like how they used the drone at the very beginning, just to bring it in, like how the classic Evil Dead shot is with the pole on the camera.
Yeah, the POV.
So I quite liked that, and then obviously the Evil Dead Rise coming up over the mountain, or over the scenery or whatever it was. Amazing. But you're telling me that's got nothing to do with the rest of the film, even though it goes like 3 months earlier or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it links back to the end of the film, and what happens at the end of the film then leads to the cabin in the woods. But I'm like, but how? I just think it would have been easier having something happen in the cabin in the woods, and that be how it's brought into the building, rather than it's already under the building. I mean, what is like one of the Sumerian books of the dead doing in Los Angeles in the first place, right?
Who knows, man? That's how.
Now, see, look, I was originally against the idea of setting an Evil Dead film in the city because I'm sure they wouldn't have the budget to go full City of the Deadites, and that's exactly what we get here. Sadly, bar the family and what happens to them, and a few neighbours, that's pretty much it in terms of Deadite action. I thought we could have at least had a few more Deadite apartment tenants, like at least fill up the building, get a few nods to the classic Italian horror, Demons, Dario Argento's one. There's a great tower block thing with possessed people in that. You could have done a little nice dot to that, I thought. Having said that, despite the low standard of budget, which was only 15 to 19 million, Evil Dead Rise has been the most successful Evil Dead ever at the box office, raking in 146 million. So I think my main issue with it is I wanted the film to go big and like have a massive Deadite infestation take place in the city, and then have our main character she could escape maybe and either run into Ash or Mia from the Evil Dead films. Because if you remember the 2013 Fede Alvarez Evil Dead, it ends with Bruce Campbell turning up as Mia's walking away from the carnage,
Mm.
because they wanted to set up this wider universe. Of course, after that, they never ended up making a sequel to Freddy Alvarez one, and the idea they had ended up then becoming Ash vs Evil Dead, the TV series, which basically finishes off Bruce Campbell's storyline. That ran for 3 seasons, and after that, Bruce Campbell's like, yeah, you know what, loved it, I'm done, cheers. So I don't think we're going to get Bruce Campbell back in again. Once the evil was unleashed, why did it decide to? So the evil is under the building in LA, right? Once it's unleashed, why does it decide to take a trip back to the woods again?
Maybe that's just where it wants to be, man. You know, that's where it's most comfortable. Like, that's where it's home.
I mean,
is.
clearly, but then isn't there more people to possess and make into horrific deadites in the city?
Where are you getting that it wants to possess
Well,
everybody?
I'm not getting that, but
it's not like a zombie virus.
no, but they don't really clearly explain it in any of them, do they? Like the way they did that. So, I mean, you've got Army of the Dead, right? Evil Dead 3, where it literally is an Army of the Dead. Although that's the most comedic of the ones. So I feel it obviously doesn't connect with what they're trying to do here.
Good film.
Pros, though, I will say it delivers massively on the nastiness and gore. I would say this film goes to places not many mainstream horror films would go to. And so well done, Mr. Cronin, for that. However, I thought it lacked the jet black humour that Raimi's films had. I mean, if we look at the 2013 one, that doesn't really have any humour in it at all. You know, again, you've got the similar parallel like Talk to Me had.
I liked that 2013 one, though.
But again, you did have the allegory there with the possession being like drugs, because the character in that, Mia, she's coming off drugs as she goes there. So that's why people don't start believing her at the start when all the stuff starts happening.
And I kind of liked that it went back to the more horror roots of the first film than the comedy roots of the second.
I think that's the problem, though, is so many of the fans of Evil Dead, it has to be both things. It has to be funny and horrific. I mean, there are bits in it that make you laugh, just to the pure nastiness of it. You know, you already know there's an infamous cheese grater scene.
Yep, I'm aware.
Well, again, I've seen it in other films recently, though. There's a glass eating scene where someone's eating glass, and you're like, but we've seen this. It's not original now. I will say, like, all the performances of the kids in it are really good, and I think Alyssa Sutherland, who plays the main possessed lady,
I always wonder with films like this, which have got kids in it, and it's a horror film, and it's clearly fucking disturbing, whether the kids are like
of blood
allowed to watch the film afterwards or at any point.
I think in the making of it, they're not horrified by it because they've been there, so I don't think it messes them up as much as you might think. Because I don't think I think any kid who's a teenager just looks at gross shit online anyway these days.
Yeah, but there's a difference between watching, like being there, being like with a bunch of like whatever's making the blood and you know it's fake, to having the music put on top of it, having the build up put on top of it, having everything else like the editing put on top of it, and then seeing it all come together.
Yeah, I think they don't see it finished until the thing, or it's out of context what they show them. I'll probably show them bits of the edit, right, and all the bits of their performances and that. But I don't know on that one, man. I think it depends on the kid, really, doesn't it? It depends on the age.
I mean, we're gonna talk about The Exorcist a little later, but that's when I don't know if I've ever told you, Neil, but I've been blessed by Linda Blair.
Only about the 4th or 5th time on this very podcast, David.
And it was actually what I asked her when I met her just at Comic-Con. She was just sitting there on her own, not doing anything. So I was like, oh my god, fucking Linda Blair is a horror icon, and she's just there. So I went up there, paid like £5 for her autograph, and had a little chat. And I asked her if she was able to, if she actually saw the film after filming, like directly after.
Mm-hmm.
And she must have thought I was a fucking idiot or something, because she thought I was asking her if she'd seen the film ever,
just in general,
life. Yeah. So Linda Blair thinks I'm a fucking moron, because I wanted to know that question from her, you know, because she was a child when she filmed, and The Exorcist was fucking horrific when it came out.
David, if you'd been doing a podcast back then, you would have had the interview technique to ask the correct question.
Yeah, she probably would have still got confused. I mean, I suppose it wasn't that silly a question. You're like, Michael Caine doesn't watch his films.
No, I feel like from the way you described the story, you just phrased it badly.
I did come across like a right tit, but she still gave me a blessing, which was kind of cute, kind of scary.
Well, I was going to say, I think all the kids in it are really good. There's you got your 3 main kids in it, and then Ellie's played by Alyssa Sutherland, who, if you watched Vikings, is Queen Aslag. Aslag or Slag? It looks like Queen Aslag, to be fair, the way it's written. But to be fair, she did kind of Lagerford's Yeah, she was a slag. Yeah, Queen Slag. But anyway, she, I think, gives a career-defining performance as the main Deadite antagonist. And of course, that bit where she utters the iconic line now from the trailer, the mummies with the maggots. That's, it's superb. So, David, facts. The film used over 6,500 litres of fake blood. That's 1,117 US gallons. A commercial food manufacturer was hired to process all the fake blood. So, you haven't seen it all yet, but this film has been quite a big success.
I mean, give that to me in petrol cost. How much would that cost to me in petrol?
I don't know. A lot. You'd be easily over, like, I don't know petrol cost, man. Anyway, talking the future of the franchise, in April this year, so this is right before the film came out, because I believe it came out in May, Campbell said he and Raimi would ideally like to make new installments every 2 to 3 years if Evil Dead Rise was a success. Well, clearly it was, and Evil Dead Rise director Cronin also said he'd be happy to come back again. So, one of the key things in this book that is explained in the lore is that there are 3 different books of the dead. And the idea is that each different set of characters we've had in these films, so Ash in the original trilogy, Mia in the 2013 one, and now Beth in this one, they've all encountered different versions of the books. So, I think they've definitely got thoughts about trying to make this huge EDCU, the Evil Dead Cinematic Universe, and tie them all together at some point. I'd love to see that, man. I mean, Bruce Campbell can come back from a cameo, can't he? He'd probably just come back and like, hey, boomstick, and like do his catchphrase and then get horribly murdered. I think is what he'd probably like to do, or Raimi would like to do to him. And then you've got, your 2 heroines from the most recent films. I mean, hell, you could even bring in whoever was left surviving from the TV show, because the TV show felt tonally closest to the original movies in terms of the horror, gore, and comedy. But David, where would you like to see the Evil Dead franchise go? Or would you like to see it continue?
Oh, I'd like to see the Evil Dead Rise to begin with.
And we got comments, and Stu from Stu World Order said, Evil Dead Rise was a worthy addition to the franchise, even if I missed the humour of the original trilogy. I prefer it to the 2013 movie, personally. I think I do as well, to be fair. It's hard. I've only watched it the one...
I mean, I haven't seen, like we've said, but that was good, the 13 one.
They're both good films, to be fair. No, I think I'm not going to go I think I prefer the 2013 film.
Okay, you did a quick 180 there.
I did a quick reverse ferret, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as I said early on at the start of the review, I wanted them to go big or go home. I want a full city of Deadites, not another one-location bloodbath with a small cast. I want citywide carnage. I want fire and brimstone coming down from the skies, rivers and seas boiling, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. And that, David, is a segue to the next thing we're going to talk about, which is our Ghostbusters Frozen Empire trailer.
Yeah. I mean, you made me watch this about 5 minutes before the start of the film. If I start the film, are we watching a film right now?
No. Well, I mean, I'm not. I'm doing a podcast.
Let's watch the podcast again. I mean, let's watch the trailer again. I've forgotten all words.
Yes. So this is a sequel to the Ghostbusters Afterlife that came out a couple of years ago. I just put Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, misspelt it, and I put Ghostbusters versus the Roman Empire. And part of me wants to click on that now and see what it is.
I kind of want to know what that is too. That sounds like a better film than this is titled.
Yes, so we're going to be talking Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which was written by Jason Reitman and Gil Keenan, who I believe co-wrote the previous film, Ghostbusters Afterlife, in 2021. But this Reitman has stepped back from directing duties now, and Keenan, his co-writer, is taking over directing, which I believe this might be his... Oh no, he directed Monster House. Monster House, David?
You're going to have to refresh my memory there, Neil.
The animated kids film from 2000 and I want to say 6. Yeah.
Was that another question?
And no, I'm just telling you. He did. He directed the Poltergeist remake in 2015. Boo.
Right, okay.
That was terrible. But he also did Monster House and City of Ember, which was quite good. Oh, so he's worked with Bill Murray before. So that's quite handy. That's quite handy because Murray can be hard to work with, we've heard. So that's handy that he's worked with him before. You got new cast. So basically, the idea after the success of Ghostbusters Afterlife, Sony announced, because obviously at the end, you've seen Afterlife right now.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
They finally did right by Winston and made him a millionaire who got this giant company now. Basically, they take the station wagon back to New York, and we're going to get the old cast and the new cast kind of mingled together. But I didn't know this film was that far along. I know they mentioned it was coming, and then the trailer just dropped out of nowhere. And the first thing we see is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. That's a shit title.
That is a shit title.
Here is the premise, though, from Wikipedia, and it says, and this is directly from Sony Pictures as well. In Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, the Spengler family decide to leave Somerville, Oklahoma, and go back to where it all started, the iconic New York City firehouse, and help the original Ghostbusters, who've developed a top-secret research lab to take busting ghosts to the next level. But when the discovery of an ancient artifact unleashes a mysterious and evil force known as the Death Chill, Ghostbusters, new and old, must join forces to protect their home and save the world from a deadly and unpredictable fate that unknowingly could affect Earth's history with a second ice age. I mean, that literally just sounds like something someone wrote on the back of a sandwich packet, doesn't it?
What was that film?
For Tomorrow, Jake Gyllenhaal.
A Day After. Yeah, how did you know that's where I was going?
Because there's that big shot of the storm coming in over New York, right?
Yeah.
I was literally, I joke, I think I put a few posts going, so can we have Ghost Jake Gyllenhaal in this film at some point, just like as a cameo?
He should just get speared by one of the icicles that are coming up out of the ground.
See, the thing is, man, you know this is going to be like PG-13, right? You know it's going to be...
Yeah.
So we should probably just mention what happens in the trailer. So it starts off with a beach and Cruel Summer playing, and
you think it's Karate Kid.
You think it's Karate Kid. I was like, oh, they're going for a kind of Jaws thing. You know, you have the shot of the kids sat on the beach. The older mum, like looks over her glasses, like, oh, they're definitely doing Jaws here. And then icicles start falling out of the sky, but bizarrely not impaling anyone, David, because this is a PG-13 film. I mean, it could have at least one or two impalings.
Just a little bit of death. That's all we're asking.
A little bit of death.
Yeah. Like child murder, maybe.
I mean, they actually mentioned, don't they, in the trailer, like, it's called The Death Chill. And as I said off air earlier, I think Ghostbusters The Death Chill sounds a lot better than Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. But then you speculated, do you reckon that's because it's going to involve the Empire State Building?
But yeah, I think the film's going to, like, the crescendo, the end of the film, third act is going to take place on the Empire State Building, just based off the title and nothing else. And the fact that it's set in New York, obviously.
Can you remember? Well, I mean, what I like from it is it seems to be combining the old cast and the new cast, and it seems to be a new threat as well, like a nice monster demon thing. We get this one shot, don't we, near the end of the trailer? It's the last shot of the trailer where this kind of really tall-looking ice demon lady is walking out of the shadows, and you've got Paul Rudd, Carrie Coon, Finn Wolfhard, and McKenna Grace all there, and Paul Rudd's just like going, oh, he's like really happy about it. I was like, yes, that is like the Ray energy from the original film, isn't it? You know, they're not scared when the Stay Marshmallow Man arrives. They're like, oh, brilliant. This is going to be, you know, I'm a massive Ghostbusters fan, man. And I really liked Afterlife. I know people in Afterlife I know some of the critics of Afterlife didn't like it because it was kind of a rehash of the first film. And in terms of Gozer and the dogs, but it was a send-off to Bill Murray. Sorry. It's not a send-off to Bill Murray. Bill Murray's not dead. You didn't hear that here. It was a send-off to Ivan Reitman.
Exclusive.
I mean, did you remember what Paul Rudd's character is called in the film? Without Googling. No, sorry, none of us can. Gary Gruberson.
Yes, you took it off the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, you was definitely going to say that. But I mean, I thought young McKenna Grace as Phoebe Spengler was amazing in the last film. She was like the MVP of the film, hands down. I like all the toxic man babies who moaned about the female remake by Paul Feig a few years back. It just wasn't a great film. Okay, it's nothing to do with the fact they're women. It just Sony didn't know what they wanted to do with it, and by all the sounds of all accounts, and we've been through this on the older podcast as well, that there was just a lot of studio interference. Here, I think because you've got Reitman Jr. involved. And obviously Ivan Reitman directed the original two Ghostbusters films, it means there's a bit more, okay, we know what we're doing with the franchise now. And she just embodied like a young Egon so well. You know, I just thought she was a really good performance. But Finn Wolfhard as her brother Trevor, I mean, come on. A Ghostbuster called Trevor.
What's wrong with a Ghostbuster called Trevor?
It doesn't roll off the tongue, does it? You know, Egon, Ray, Venkman, Winston. They're all powerful names,
like
man. Trevor!
I always thought Egon and Venkman were quite peculiar names.
They're all peculiar names, man. Let's be honest.
Well,
Ray's only
a peculiar name.
Ray's not a problem.
Yeah.
Finn Wolfhard didn't have a lot to do, man. He drove the car. That was about it in the film. And then he had this rubbish storyline with...
Venkman's name's Peter, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is his last name.
But they called him Venkman.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't work in this because they're all called Spengler. They'd be like, hey, Spengler. Yeah, what? No, the other Spengler. Finn Wolfhard's back. Hopefully he'll be given something to do this time. His girlfriend, who I forgot was even a character in it, is also back. One person, there was only one shot of in the trailer, who was awesome, and almost stole the film as well, is Logan Kim as Podcast. Remember Podcast, David?
I remember
You remember.
Podcast. Of course you remember Podcast. How can we have a podcast and not remember
Without
the one
Podcast.
that's called Podcast in a Podcast?
So I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for this film right now, and it's due out on March 29th. But it also lists under the cast list, and we saw in the trailer briefly, that Kamal Nanjiani is going to be in it. He's brilliant in everything, so more Kamal Nanjiani. James Acosta, the British comedian, is going to be in it. I don't think I've ever seen in anything. Isn't he known for just stand-up comedy and podcasts more than anything else?
I don't know who that is. I'm going to have a look now. Okay, yep, I don't recognise him from anything.
Fair enough. Me neither. I recognise the name. I think he's massive in podcast, and we really should know that as we do a podcast. The other name that has got me really excited on the list, and I don't know if this is true or not, because sometimes a lot of these lists, they just basically bung down the name of everyone who was in the franchise. But it says William Atherton as Walter Peck. Do you remember who Walter Peck is?
Man, you know I'm not the biggest Ghostbusters fan, man. Why you gotta embarrass me like that? You gotta throw these questions. Okay, who's Walter Peck? Tell me.
Walter Peck is the local government guy who comes down and shuts down the reactor on the ghost machine and lets all the ghosts out into the city. And then Peter says, "Yes, it's true, Your Honor. This man has no dick."
Oh, okay, no, I remember the scene. I don't
He's a
remember
no
the
dick man.
Character, okay.
Forever. And also he's in Die Hard, which we're going to be talking about soon as well. Cautiously optimistic on this, as I was for the last one. I think it was all kind of like a tribute film in the last film, which was absolutely fine. This film, I hope they do something new and original with it. I think the young cast need to be given something more to do, but I am quite excited to see them mix them together a bit more. Do we think we're going to get any of the original cast killed off in this one? Do you think Bill Murray's going to go? I think Bill Murray probably wants to go.
He might. I don't know, man. Maybe none of the original cast were killed off in the last one.
Well, Egon, who's sadly not around anymore in real life.
So I don't know whether they'll do something similar.
Basically, David, for you, I'm going to be there opening night. You're going to wait for it to come onto Netflix, aren't you?
What I kind of would like to see from a Ghostbusters film is one that's actually a little scary. Like the original one, where
had the mix right, didn't it?
Yeah. So with mainly at the very beginning, with the librarian.
Oh, that is one of my. It still terrifies me to this day, and I know it's coming.
It's genuinely a little scary, but the rest
it's
of
a lot scary, man.
Yeah, I think
Get her was your plan, Ray.
I'd like to find one. I'd like there to be a Ghostbusters that properly leans on the horror, maybe even slightly more than the comedy.
It's possible, man. It's possible. But I don't think that's the film we're going to be getting. But
yeah, it will definitely not. I feel like this is a kids' film by the looks of it.
But then again, they did say in the trailer, people froze to death in the middle of July. Not many people usually die in Ghostbusters or are seen dying, do they? Ghostly materials are flying around the city, and then it's kind of like, oh, hey, the Ghostbusters. Oh no, they're going to fail. Oh no, they've won.
Will these people be actually dead, or will they just be? Oh, they're frozen. They need to be unfrozen, and then they'll be okay again.
We need to reverse it. So if we kill the main baddie, everyone who's frozen will come alive again.
Global warming.
I think we've just finished the film there, David. I think that's exactly what the end of the film's going to be, isn't it?
Yeah.
They kill the bad guy.
They'll need to project it from the Empire State Building.
And it'll be something to do with New York. There'll be a bunch of construction workers going, hey, New York.
Empire State Building will be used as a portal into another dimension, or, where all the ghosties are. And they're going to come pouring out of the Empire State Building, and they'll need to close it, and then they'll need to use the Empire State Building as like a beacon.
Did you just call it the Empire Steak Building?
I did. Got steak on the mind, even though I'm a vegetarian.
Steak. Yeah, I was about to say.
They'll use that as a global warming reference.
Right. Well, coming next year, and I'm very excited for it, as obviously Ghostbusters, Frozen, Empire. Still a bad title. Next up, David's man crush, Mike Flanagan's Netflix swan song, before he heads over to Amazon to potentially work on some Stephen King adaptations. Yep, this is The Fall of the House of Usher, an 8-episode season that follows, well, the fall of the House of Usher, taking place over 2 time periods as we have the young Roderick Usher, played by Midnight Mass's Zach Gilford, and Reacher's Willa Fitzgerald as his sister Madeline, as we chart their complicated youth and rise to power in the past. While in the present, we have the final 2 weeks of the House of Usher, as we are told early on in the first episode that all of Usher's children are dead. Both time periods are bookended by D.A. C. Auguste Dupin, played by Cole Lumbly, interrogating Bruce Greenwood's modern-day Roderick Usher. As Usher states, he is here to confess to everything as he is plagued by visions and the ghosts of his children, and that sets the series in motion. David, initial thoughts on the House of Usher?
I was quite disappointed by the overall show. Like you said, I was a big fan of. Well, I am a big fan of Mike Flanagan. I genuinely love.
No takebacks, as you said was.
I genuinely love the bloke. I think he's amazing, and I mean, the show was great.
Yeah,
but I was just a bit disappointed by it because I felt like it wasn't. I don't think it was what I personally wanted from the show. You know, I wanted something that was in the same similar vein to Midnight Mass or Bly Manor. It wasn't. The succession of horror is a phrase that you've got written down in your notes. Maybe it's because I just don't fucking like Succession, and you know, like I feel like you need to have
relatable characters,
at least one likable character.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
In this, and there is, I suppose, like the detective is, and the granddaughter is.
Yeah,
but the detective's in it quite a lot, but the granddaughter's barely in it. And yeah, you need just like one character that you can hone in and focus on, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a good character. And I with this as well, because it was very like this episode is focused on this character's death. This focused is this character's death. I felt like it didn't have. I feel like none of the deaths were built to where you cared about it enough.
No, you knew it was coming the whole way, didn't you?
Well, you knew it was coming because it's that character's episode. Once you've done the first episode, you realised, okay, that's how it's going to go for all the rest of the children.
Yeah.
And then the one where she cuts open the person that, you know, where she's doing the heart murmur and she's got the heart device.
Victorine.
That would have been a really awesome moment if it was built over more than one episode.
But they didn't have time because they had to do all the kids.
Because it was all but that's where I felt like the show really disappointed. Is that there wasn't enough, in one episode to warrant any of these, like for you to really care about the characters. And I know like the awful people, but you just didn't care.
Is it enough to just rely on seeing awful people get their comeuppance and know it's going to happen? I mean, you're right. Like episode 2 to 7 is the framework of the show, and every episode 1's a setup. Episode 8 is obviously the finale, but every other episode is just about one of the kids dying. Quite graphically, usually as well. Though to be fair, we doesn't skimp on the gore, which is quite good.
I mean, what I did like was that every episode was. I mean, I'm not the biggest Edgar Allan Poe fan. But I knew that every episode was an Edgar Allan Poe work.
Well, and this is one of the things that was interesting for me because
that was adapted. Yeah,
I knew some of the stories, but I'd read some of them in the past probably, and others I'd seen where they'd been adapted into other films or shows over the years. The one that kept coming to mind and making me laugh when I was watching it, I kept remembering the Simpsons Halloween specials when they did the Edgar Allan Poe one, and so even then, the Telltale Heart, the Raven, you're remembering it. You go, so even though it's completely different like medium, you know what the story's going to go. You know what's going to happen on it. So it takes that away, doesn't it? There's no surprise. I know that's probably their big like mission statement. They're all going to die, and this is how it happened. But well, great. I mean, like you said, one thing it did do very similarly, and again, linking back to the drugs thing, is it's obviously a connection to the real life Sackler family who created the opioid epidemic in the States, and that was a nice way of finding a modern setting to put all of Poe's stories in as a framework. So I thought that was done quite well. The only problem with that is that Sackler story has been adapted so many times recently. The Dropout on Disney Plus, Pain Hustlers on Netflix. There was another show that was the exact same story that's been done recently. So I was a bit sick of it. I was like, oh, okay, I get it's clever that you found this framework for Poe's stories to make them fit. Otherwise, how would you connect it all together? And then obviously I bet you someone, probably Flanagan, he's like, it's Succession, but horror. And they're like, yes, here's the money, Mike. Oh, great, I'm going to take that money and I'm going over to Amazon now. Because I think with Flanagan, he wants to spend time on it. And Netflix were like, no, we need it every year.
Yeah.
Every Halloween, you're a guy.
I think he spent a lot of time filming in it. Is it in Canada? Where he spent a lot of the time filming all of these shows. I might have just pulled that from a tweet, I think, that he'd done a while back. But he spent a lot of time in one location working on all of this content. And he tweeted saying, like, I'm fucking happy to be done, basically. I think the best thing about this show are the performances. When the writing, the scares, and the performances all merge into one, you get Hill House. With this, the scares are there, but they feel quite unwarranted in a lot, and and they are quite telling, yeah.
And this was one of my issues with it. Do you think that we're so used to Flanagan's style now that you're already looking for the ghosts in the background? You already know something's going to walk out from there. And I think even he's aware of that. So I think that might have been why with this, he's like, right, well, we know they're going to be ghosts. And it's just that more subtle dread of like, because obviously, as each episode's kind of bookended or has flash forwards to the present day, where Usher's being interviewed by Dupin, you kind of, as you're watching that, he's seen the ghost and it's getting worse and worse each episode. Even that makes the episode predictable. He's like, oh, this episode he's going to see that kid who's dead. Oh, next episode he's going to see this one.
I was kind of hoping it would be, I like when his mother was established as a ghost, I was hoping you'd see more of that, because that was quite creepy, that first episode where they buried her
and then she came back again.
Yeah, and then killed, there was no real explanation as to why the fuck that happened.
I thought the casting, again, like you say, was really good. Like Zach Gilford, he is almost relatable. He's probably like before he turns. And that was what I liked the flashbacks more in the early episodes than I did in the main stuff, because I thought his sister was really good, Willa Fitzgerald. Trying to think, she was in season 1 of Jack Reacher that was just on Amazon last year. She was really good playing the young Madeline. And you're watching it going, okay, well, wait a minute. Him and the young Dupin are becoming friends. So what is it that happens? Where's that twist happen with? And again, you see it's going to happen when he gets to the point where he's blatantly just going to we know what he's going to say. We know he's going to change his mind and screw him over and get the promotion. Obviously, they take it one step further with how he eventually gets to power in a company. I on my notes, I've literally got Succession but horror, and it is that thing and I know people who are massive Succession fans, and they're like, yeah, but you just need to watch it. The writing's great, and I'm sure it is. But I watched about 3/4 of the first series, and I just couldn't keep carrying on with it. I was like, like you say, I do, and like you do, we need someone to root for early on. And I think that's a problem with this show, that it doesn't really have that. I will say, you mentioned the acting. Bruce Greenwood is the show's MVP. He's superb.
Yeah,
as
he's
Usher.
amazing.
And here it's even more amazing considering he was a last-minute replacement from Frank Langella, who was fired early on for being a bit unacceptable on set. That's all we know about that. But
I don't think there wasn't really a weak performance. If I was to be really hypercritical, the performances that I didn't like as much, and it wasn't really performance, it was more down to just general character, was Raoul Coley's, because I fucking love Raoul Coley. Just his character, I felt like was just
bruv.
He was the one that I know what he did for work, but he never worked. None of them, like the rest of them, you see him sort of working. What was his job?
Well, they're all scammering, weren't they? They're all trying to get scams on the go and make money.
Anyway, his one, I was about he's fucking annoying. And also, Carla's...
Carla Gugino.
Yeah. I
She's
didn't think she was...
I thought she was.
That great. I felt like a lot of her was quite one-dimensional.
No, I thought she was superb.
You're
talking at your hole.
I don't know. I felt like I didn't...
She immediately sets up the mystery. She's like this harbinger, isn't she? She is the Raven. And as we learn later on, she's the person they make the deal with in the final episode.
I
love how she takes on the form of many people and animals, and she is like this harbinger of death for the family.
Yeah, so that's not really performance, though, what you're saying there.
Well, it is. She has to be convincing in it as you're watching her do these things, and she approaches each of the kids differently in the way she's like the security guard in the medical thing. Yeah, she comes on to Perry at the club.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I don't know. I just felt
she's a vet with a cat.
I thought she was superb in any of it, if I'm honest. But I love her in other.
That's weird, man. I can't see why you think she wasn't good in this.
Maybe I can't explain.
Here's a good example. Her scene with Lenore in the last episode is beautiful. That was almost up to Midnight Mass levels of really like dialogue in there, because as they explain, the whole house has to die, and that also includes, which is Lenore, who, like we said, is the only good one. But then when she goes on to explain to her, she has to take her life, but tells her all the good that will come from it.
Yeah.
And she gives her a peaceful death. Yeah, because obviously her mother gets horribly mangled in the chemical. It was like Blade, but with instead of blood, it was like chemical waste. And it's from that, her and the widow, the Irish girl who was from the Midnight Club. It's those two actually changed her to be a force for good. But that scene was really good. That was heartbreaking, man. Like this young girl who's like innocent still has to die because of the deal they made.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It just like it was. There was a good scene. I don't know what to tell you, man. It just wasn't there for me. But having said that, like you said, Bruce Greenwood was amazing. Kate Siegel I thought was great, even though she was Mark Hamill I fucking loved.
Mark Hamill was amazing. Yeah, like totally against type there, wasn't he?
Yeah, like Willa Fitzgerald, like you said, she was fucking fantastic.
Sarah Slolin from Midnight Mass, who was an evil bitch in that, gets a bit more to do with Tamerlane in this.
Yeah.
I mean, she was second to last.
I really like about Mike Flanagan is that if an actor does a job for him and he likes them and they're like work well together, he's going to work with them again. They're coming back.
I mean, I can't wait to see what Stephen King adaptation he chooses to do or they're working on for Amazon. Because the problem with a lot of these Stephen King ones is they're badly cast. They're so badly cast as horror films.
Yeah, I just love that he knows, like, if there's an actor that he loves and they've done a job for him, they're working for him again. And I don't think there wasn't many first timers in that. I think obviously Mary McDonnell,
Donnie Darko, or President Rosalind. She played Donnie Darko's mum, and she was a president in Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, because I mean she hadn't done anything for a while.
She's constantly working, man. She does loads.
Yeah. But she hadn't done anything since 2021.
Yeah, well, pandemic, man. David, I have exciting news. I mean, it's not news. You probably know this. So he's talking about Flanagan and Stephen King. Flanagan is adapting The Dark Tower.
Yeah.
Properly for Amazon.
I've
never read it.
I've not. Yeah, I've struggled to get into the first one, if I'm honest.
Same, exactly the same, man. I bought the first 3 as a set, and I haven't got. I'm gonna have to give it another try, man.
Yeah, same. I've got it down here somewhere. Where is it?
Their plan before the writers' strike, so that's when this article was done. It was to do 5 seasons of TV and then 2 films to finish it.
I like how The Dark Tower is the one that brings together basically all of the other books, though, in some link or some. I love with Stephen King's work. I love how it's all interlinked in some way. I
mean, it's the original book universe, isn't it? The original cinematic universe.
Yeah.
If they could get that properly and just and it doesn't need to be overtly linked, just a subtle bit here and there, and the fans would love it.
I'd like Mike Flanagan to do first with Stephen King's work.
Well, he's doing The Dark Tower, so that's the next 5 years of his life.
Yeah,
maybe 10.
I mean, what would you have liked to have seen him do?
I would like to have seen him do his old school classic. Pet Sematary has never been done properly. The Death of a Child. And Flanagan works best when he's adapting an old classic story. And Pet Sematary, even King said this, is like his riff on The Monkey's Paw. It's that idea where you make a wish, but the wish is evil. So, you wish to be rich. Oh, by the way, your son was killed at a factory yesterday, but here's the big payout. The Box was quite similar. The Richard Kelly one, the guy who did Donnie Darko, that was his last film that he made years ago. And that was Cameron Diaz and James Marsden. And that was really good. And that was a similar idea. You push this button and you get $1 million, but someone you don't know somewhere in the world dies.
Would you push that button?
That's a lot more tempting than it is to do the hand, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot more.
Would you push the button, Neil?
Depends, man. Depends where you are in your life. Depends how much money means to you if you need it or not at that point, doesn't it?
Yeah. How much money?
$1 million. It's only $1 million, which isn't that much these days.
I might accidentally slip on it.
Yeah. Oops, didn't mean to push it. Do I still get the money though? But no one meant to die. No, I'd like to see him do Salem's Lot, which had a brilliant miniseries by Toby Hooper back in the late 70s, and it's had loads of rubbish TV adaptations since. 2 of his I really liked was The Tommyknockers, which has never been done. Oh no, it was a miniseries that was terrible. And then also Desperation. Desperation was brilliant about this possessed sheriff on the highway who would just pull people off and murder them. And the stories took place there, and you would learn the characters first, and then it would jump forward to them being in jail, in the lockup with him. And again, it was brutal. It was really brutal. So Oh, and the stand done properly. I mean, they did the recent miniseries again, and it was shit again.
Yeah. I mean, The Stand's the obvious one that I think would people want to see done well because it's its most popular book, isn't
But
it?
then
The Stand?
again, the amount of time it takes to do these projects, I think if Flanagan does The Dark Tower, that's it. He's done after that with King, because it's such a magnum opus, as it were. Right. I think we need to pull this back to how Fall of the House of Usher. So the
Sorry.
last thing
I was going to say Cujo. I want to see him see
Cujo. Okay,
Yeah.
Cujo give you. But I think what you almost need, you need King and a producer, a good producer, or Team King with A24, and they go out and find brilliant young directors for each of his classic films and go, right, here you go, kid. Here's a classic. Show us what you can do. Keep the budgets relatively low because all horror films have low budgets and do really well make money. That's the way the industry always works.
I think Stephen King's one of those, especially now, where he'd be quite involved negatively in any adaptation. What do you
He's
think?
getting quite vocal on social a lot, isn't he? Do you see he posted about the Marvels today?
I didn't see, no.
And he goes, do you know what? I've not seen the Marvels. I'm not a fan of those type of movies, but all the discourse around it is disgusting, wanting films to fail. I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, Stephen King, I agree. I mean, to be fair, I agree with a lot of what he writes. But bringing it back to House of Usher, though, before we went off on our tangent, there was actually very few jump scares, and it was mainly gross out ghosts, wasn't it? Like seeing the bodies of what happened to the kids a lot, and they're all telegraphed a mile away. So, and I said earlier in the review, I think we're used to Flanagan's bag of tricks now. He doesn't do a lot of jump scares, but when he does, holy fuck! And there were none in this series that jumped out at me like that.
There was
It was more kind of
one I can think of where, I mean, most of the jump scares happen when they're having the conversation in his old home,
and they're all coming.
And most of them are coming. There was one I think where the window blows in.
Yeah,
that made me do a little internal jump. And there was one where Raul Coley's character falls from just drops randomly in front of them. Again, that made me do a little internal jump, but nothing anywhere near the scale of car jump from Hill House.
Well, I've got I think it was more slow dread they were going for in this show, wasn't it? I think
the horror really was the horror of people. That more than anything else, it's just like the horrors that people can do to each other and the horrors people will do for money and power. That was the sort of real horror of the film, not necessarily the hauntings.
Flanagan wrote or co-wrote most of the episodes, but what surprised me, seeing the name Keely Sanchez as co-writer on the finale with Flanagan. Do you know who Keely Sanchez is, David?
No.
She's kind of like a B-movie actress, and she had like a bit part in Lost in one of the middle seasons, and her character was really annoying and everyone hated her. Not her personally, like the character.
Okay.
And she played Nikki in Lost. Well, I did a bit of research. She's married to Zach Kilford, so that explains that link.
Yep, there you go.
And she has been acting continuously still. She was in like a cop show that she's still on at the minute, apparently. But hey, there you go. Last thing I want to do on Hill House, David, is favourite death. So I'm going to run through the deaths of the kids, and you tell me what your favourite one was.
I can tell you immediately.
Yeah, but then I wouldn't have to run through the list. So I want to run through the list. So we got Perry, who dies in a chemical waste nightclub melting people party. Camille gets mauled to death by a chimp. Leo falls to his death by cat. Victorine commits suicide in front of Roderick. Tamerlane gets impaled by glass mirrors. And Frederick gets bisected by a giant pendulum. What's your favourite?
It is the acid death. The first one. That was my favourite one. Acid death destruction at a
melting party.
Yep. I mean the pendulum one was a bit kind of a bit, well, it was kind of a bit sore, that, and it was a bit random as well how it was all happening.
I mean the pit and the pendulum.
I think the worst one was the cat one. I think.
Just
and the killing herself one was a bit because that whole setup where she'd gone a bit crazy and needed to use the person's corpse to try and keep her alive, and that was all a bit like, again, it would, like, if there was a build up to that moment, it would have been much better, but it just wasn't there.
So let's give me your Flanagan rankings out of his shows. Where do you have this?
Last.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't finish the
Fourth.
Midnight Club, so I would have put the Midnight
Oh
Club.
no,
last.
okay. Well, I don't. So the Midnight Club's a different type of show, though. The Midnight Club was meant to be a series, so it was all built slower.
Oh, and then it got cancelled. Okay. I still think I go, well, but they're all his shows that come out of Halloween, right? He's done the 4. So I go first Midnight Mass, Haunting of Hill House second, and then I'm torn between this and Blythe Manor for third. Yeah, where would you have this out of his 4 shows?
Fourth. I'd have it fourth. I'd have.
Fourth.
It's really tough
Between
to do
Midnight
a top.
Mass and the Haunting.
Yeah, well, to do the 3, I really liked Bly Manor as well.
No, I didn't.
I liked
Not
Bly
as much.
Manor a lot more than a lot of people did.
Yeah, I didn't.
I'm rewatching Hill House at the moment, and there's a lot in it that I forgot, and it is really good. Midnight Mass was incredible as well.
Yeah, I think that's his masterpiece. And more so because it wasn't based on any existing property, whereas Haunting of Hill House was The Haunting of Hill House was an adaptation, as was this. So I think that was his kind of his best one.
You know, I go Hill House, Midnight Mass, Bly Manor, and then For the House of Usher. But the only reason I'm splitting Bly Manor and Midnight Mass is because I felt like Bly Manor, the separation between Bly Manor and Hill House and how they set up some of the twists, there wasn't much difference. So you knew each twist before it happened because you'd already gotten used to Flanagan after one show.
Well, David, this brings us to the last thing we're going to talk about, and a classic Neil rant today. Now, we're going to be talking the new film from the recent Halloween trilogy director David Gordon Green. And as you know, on We Needed Roads, evil dies tonight, except when it doesn't. And you take a beloved horror classic and ignore all the sequels and drag it out to a trilogy. The man must be stopped. Look, Green's first Halloween was fairly decent because it reintroduced Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie again and ignored the sequels. So this Laurie has spent 40 years polishing her guns and setting traps and not really dealing with her PTSD. And it was good.
Yeah, it was good.
It was really well done. And however, each sequel got progressively worse and worse. And here we are, and they've given him The Exorcist to drag out to a trilogy. So this is the first one of the planned trilogy called Exorcist Believer. The next one, already planned, is called Exorcist Deceiver. Wow. Do you know what the third one's going to be, David? If they never get around to making it?
Believer, Deceiver. I feel like it's going to have to rhyme again. Believer,
Exorcist Reliever.
Oh!
Hopefully won't make it.
Is that actually what it's called? Or is that a guess?
No, that's what I'm calling it. I'll be relieved if they don't get to make it. So in Exorcist Believer, 2 young girls go missing and are found 3 days later with no memory of where they've been. And then, of course, they start being all possessed. And, of course, one family doesn't believe in God, while the other one is super religious. However, they don't get the super religious family do not get any character development whatsoever. Copying the original, but badly, the doctors don't know what to do, so our main character, Victor, played by Leslie Odom Jr., is handed Chris McNeil's book about what happened in the original film by Ann Dowd's helpful nurse and seeks her out to help. And then the rest of the film is just a group of poorly sketched characters shouting at the two possessed girls while they're all having a go at being exorcist, despite there not being an actual priest there and the film being called The Exorcist. Before, once again, it rips off just more iconic moments from the original, but obviously done much, much worse.
They do
And then thankfully it
explain
ends.
why the priest isn't there, and then the priest does kind of turn up like he's Superman, and the music gets all fucking like, everything's saved.
Yeah, and then
Or
snap on the
violently
neck.
dying, yeah. So I thought it was quite funny.
Yeah, but look, for me, mate, the director, he misses the point of the original completely. Who do you spend the most time with in the original?
The priest.
It's Father Karras
Yeah.
and the mum, not the girl. I've rewatched the original. I saw the original re-release 2 days before I saw this. And I've watched the original again since. I bought the new 4K box set. And I actually read an interview with the director. He likes the slow build up of the originals, but modern audiences wouldn't accept that. No, I think
off.
what modern audiences won't accept is taking one of the greatest horror films of all time and doing a 7th-rate greatest hits package rather than finding an interesting way to tell the story. He just misses the point. Like, the whole thing is to do with Father Karras and his loss of faith, and then not feeling
Modern
up to it.
audiences wouldn't accept that.
Yeah, that's
Fucking
literally
hell.
what he
Let
said.
me think of a really slow-burning horror film, which is everyone loves. Saint Maud.
Any of them. The Witch. Midsummer.
Has he not seen horror films in the last, 10 years?
No, because he was probably too busy smoking weed and making Pineapple Express, mate. and then suddenly probably had a bad trip and thought, oh, I know, I'll make horror films now.
That is a really silly comment. I haven't, if it's true, I'm
Yeah.
just taking your word for it. But
No, it's I did my research, man. It did the research. But look, and, the slow build-up in the original means we care about these characters as we get to that final confrontation. Mark Kermode, the most excellent critic, who literally, The Exorcist is his favourite film, and he's done documentaries on it over the years. In fact, his documentary on The Exorcist is on the BBC iPlayer at the minute, and I didn't realise it's that old, because he looks really young in it. I was like, that's not Mark Kermode, it's some young guy. And apparently it was made 25 years ago, which obviously The Exorcist is now making its 50-year anniversary this year. And he knows the film inside out. And he said, look, it's not about the girl, it's about the priest and the faith and the struggle. And I agree. He also noted that the writers clearly hadn't done their job in research, because there is a scene where one of the girls has "help me" or "save me" written on her stomach, which her dad recognises as something he read about in Chris McNeil's book. Except Chris never knew about this in the original, because it was a babysitter, Sharon, who saw it and called him Father Karras. And Father Karras even specifically says to Sharon, did you tell her about it? No. Good.
yeah, I mean, I think you're
If you're doing your
reading
research, no, but
too much into that, because you could sort of make assumptions after the fact that she might have seen it or been told about it afterwards.
they're
if you're
assuming that afterwards. We're not assuming it.
No, yeah, but but it can be assumed that this relationship progressed after the film credits rolled.
With who? They leave and go elsewhere. I also don't believe she'd write a book about the experience, because literally in the original, the last thing they want to do is go back to it. They just want to ignore it all.
Yeah, I mean,
they
the
say,
mother
does
and
she
daughter.
remember? I know. I'm sorry, man. I'm angry about it.
Oh, by the way, Mum, I had this written on me. Or here, look at this. Look at these scars.
No, because she doesn't remember any of it, which is stated clearly at the end of the original film.
Does she still have scars?
No, they just disappeared. They're not even there at the end of the film.
I can't remember. It's been so long since I watched that film.
I've watched it twice recently, man. So
okay, so at the end of the film, there's no scars written on her.
She's got a few marks on it. She's got no writing on her stomach, but she's got a few little marks on her face. She looks a lot better than she did at the end of The Exorcism.
Okay, so can
and that's
we assume
supposed to be
that
a couple of days later.
That the writing could still be there?
No, because
how about
it kind of appears and I think
okay.
disappears again. It clearly shows you've either not done your research on the original to get a plot point like that wrong, or you just don't care. And when you're dealing with such...
I think you just want to hate this person.
No, like, look...
So you're finding reasons to hate him.
No, David, I will give it the film its credit, right? It is not a bad film. If this was not connected to the Exorcist mythology in any way, if you followed Leslie Odom Jr. and his daughter and the whole storyline with his wife and the blessing in when they're out in... Where were they? What country were they? They were out in Africa at the start, weren't they? Haiti.
So, yeah.
It was one of those places. They was out in one of these countries at the start of the film, and the child gets blessed and all that. I was like, okay, this is good. Even though the opening shot again was the dogs fighting, literally just like the Iraq thing. It just felt to me like, and I'll get to the other rants in a minute. But look, Universal paid $400 million for the rights to this film, and the film only cost $30 million to make. And I think on its opening weekend, it made its budget back of around $30 million. Having said that, Halloween made $75 million, so we'll see how this goes. It's also, last time I checked on Rotten Tomatoes, it had a 23% rating.
Is that from critics or from audience?
I forget, but hey, 23% is pretty bad, man. The original started with dogs fighting in a foreign country. Let's do that again.
22% at the moment from
so it's dropped.
Critics, 59% on audience.
That's still not great, is it?
Both of them are like, rotten and spilled, but...
Gordon Green, man, he loves a crowd shouting stuff at someone, doesn't he? Especially after the Halloween films. The poorly sketched out religious family, right, of the other girl, that could have been made much more interesting, exploring why have they been targeted by the evil, and how a family that has utter belief they're being tested by this evil. That could have been a really interesting way to take the story.
Yeah.
But they didn't do it. There was no character development at all with them.
Yeah, I mean, even the dad...
They were stereotypes, man. You said...
There was no real struggle.
No.
In any of it.
It's just them shouting at them for a little bit.
One of the bits I found quite funny, which is weird that I found this film funny, the jump that the Christian family made from, oh, my daughter's unwell, to, they're possessed by the devil.
Yeah.
It was like that. It was pretty instant. Like, the next day, after just being a bit peculiar, PTSD, you could have put it down to, probably.
And
it was nope, she's possessed by the devil.
they literally just went out to the woods and found a buried. It wasn't even clear what it was it?
Well, I think they opened the gate, let's say, and let demons into them.
Pazuzu, because apparently it is supposed to be the same demon from the original. But here's the thing, right? What in the hell made Chris McNeil think she could just walk in there and take on the demon when literally 2 priests die doing it to save her daughter in the original? It was so stupid. When she walked in, it was
she didn't even have any holy water. She's just there with her hands nothing. Being like, I expel you, demon! You naughty demon! And then, there's this little fake out where she thinks it's worked, and then stabby eyes.
Crosses in the eyes.
Stab.
I mean, that's, if you're Ellen Burstyn, why would you come back for that? And again, for me, the lack of the priests in the whole thing is a problem for me. And it's like, it's a central tenet of the film. The title of the film is literally The Exorcist. There's no exorcist in it. They finally send the priest in, like you say. He gets his hero moment, and then boom, snap, head twist, and he's dead. But it's about the religious act of exorcism, and you don't have a key character who is an exorcist. And this whole I don't know what he was trying to do, but he failed miserably at it. All the different cultures and have different religions, and if we band together, then one of them might work on it. No. Like, you need an exorcist.
There was a lot of things that were mishandled. Like, there was a lot of genuine emotion that they could have built on properly. Like, you could have had Leslie Odom Jr. like fucking hate being a dad, but instead they made him out to be like this best dad instead of having to be like really struggle and have him fucking hate it. But
you could have him hate his daughter because his wife died.
But he's there
and
for
the
her,
daughter talked,
always.
And the daughter, when the daughter's possessed, literally turn around to him and say that and speak with his wife's voice. That would have been good.
But there's none of that. Been great. I said to Natasha, like, the beginning of the film, I quite enjoyed because it felt like Prisoners. Where they're just like, "Where's our daughter? Where have our kids gone? No, we can't find them.
Where's Paul Dano?"
Except Prisoners is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also felt the ending though,
right?
Where
that was telegraphed a mile away, wasn't it?
The devil tricks him, or whoever tricks him. The demon. What's the demon called?
Pazuzu.
Okay.
Pazuzu.
Tricks. When do we find that out? Is that told to us at some point?
Not explicitly in this film, but the demon's called Pazuzu in the original, and when McNeil comes in and sees him, he goes, we've met before," or that line.
Yeah.
So it's the same demon. Is what they're.
I gathered it was the same demon. I just didn't know the name.
I did like the bit where she's fallen out of touch with Reagan, and the demon tries to convince her that Reagan's dead. That was quite a clever little.
Yeah.
That was one thing I liked a little bit. But like you say, the ending is telegraphed a mile away, man. One girl's going to live and one girl's going to die. And
it's in the trailer, isn't it? Like, the trailer ends with them saying, "One of us lives, one girl dies. You need to choose," and that's in the fucking trailer. But
really? I didn't remember that one.
Yeah.
I bet you right now, though, the surviving girl is going to be possessed by a dead friend in the planned sequel to Deceiver.
Maybe if we follow the same family. I kind of hope we don't. Although I do really like Leslie Odom Jr. as an actor. I kind of hope he's going to be in more stuff.
He's the best actor in it by a million miles. But if you're trying to do this like dualism between his daughter and his family, and then this other girl, there's no development on their side at all. Yeah. So why do we care?
I did like the little twist though with him, where at the very beginning, where he has to make the choice between saving his wife or his heavily pregnant wife, or saving the baby. And you never know what decision he makes, but you just assume that he saved the baby because he's got this daughter now.
Yeah,
but he didn't. He wanted to save the wife instead. I liked that twist a little bit that was used against him. Have there been more than just him because he seemed to be like the perfect dad. He didn't have any problems. He was like, "Yeah, I'm a perfect stay-at-home single father, no issues whatsoever."
He should have had issues with his daughter being alive and his wife not. That would have been really good to explore.
Struggles in general. Struggles with being a single dad. Taking out the fucking bins, not taking out the bins ain't struggling. The one scene that we kind of got.
Apparently as well, mate, Linda Blair read the script and was on set as an advisor, but declined a role other than the, again, telegraphed cameo at the end. So she clearly read the script and was like, "Nope, I am not being in this more than I need to be."
Yeah, have I tell you about the time I ever met Linda Blair?
No. Please do.
No, I don't ever tell you about that. Yeah, she gave me a blessing, little signature.
The power of Christ compels you to stop telling this story, David.
One thing I did like about this, which again, like if you take away the Exorcist film, it's a decent possession horror.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. I didn't like. I mean, the fact that it's a part of the Exorcist universe was a bit pointless.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't done in the worst possible way it could have been. I suppose that's kind of a compliment. What I did like though, so this is my least favorite subgenre of horror.
Oh, possession films.
Well, religious possession based films,
Right.
like exorcism films, are my least favorite. Yeah, by far. And what I don't like about how a lot of them went was how fucking shocking can we make this? What can we make these people do? What can we make these people say? And how disgusting can we be? I like that the director didn't go down that route. You know, it wasn't overtly shocking. It wasn't disgusting.
No. But at the same time, he didn't understand what made the original so good and just took all the trappings of a modern day possession film.
I mean, like
and hit
with
the same beats.
what the demon's actually saying and doing. You know, the demon's using historic moments from.
He just did exactly what they did in the original. He didn't do anything new or clever.
Oh, I know that you had this abortion. Okay, that's nice. So it's using like personal demons as against these people.
I mean,
which I liked.
What
I didn't like. You know, it could have been like there could have been more on the whole "your mother sucks cocks in hell" line. You know, you could have gone down that route, but been fucking disgusting and graphic
when she
with
stabs her in the eye, doesn't she?
It's just one. Yeah, but that's just one little cunt. You know, that's not.
With small c.
You know, that's not really. That's not shocking, is it? You know, like
it was in 1973.
Yeah, I guess then, but with a lot of exorcism films afterwards, they get more and more shocking with what they make people say and what they make these people do as well. You know, like even the original one was I think more shocking. In the original one, does she masturbate with a cross?
Oh yeah, the editing's different in it as well. Having rewatched the original a few times recently, when you have these moments of like extreme horror and shock in it, they're very short. They're like almost crescendos to a scene, and then it drops back down again, and it's like the build up,
yeah.
the slowness. The more with Father Karras struggling with his faith and all that kind of stuff. In fact, when I saw it in the cinema, do you know what got the biggest jump of the whole film in the original?
What?
It was a bit of tape being ripped off her in the hospital when she's having the brain scans. And just the sound of the tape. It's so loud in the mix. Everyone jumped and then laughed because I was like, we're looking around like, that's what made us jump in The Exorcist was a bit of tape at the hospital. But everyone jumped, had the same reaction to it. And when I watched it on a Blu-ray last week again, it's exactly there on that mix. It's like it's very loud, and it's clever because it gets you because you're expecting loud noises and jump scares when it's dark and it's evil. You don't expect it in a bright, well lit room.
Yeah.
So it was so masterfully done that one.
Can you remind me in the first one? Does she start masturbating with a cross? Like violently stabbing herself.
It says, let Jesus fuck you, let Jesus fuck you.
Yeah.
And you see blood.
So even the original is more shocking than this one.
Oh yeah.
But like I said, it's my least favourite subgenre of horror, so I was quite glad that it wasn't like that.
Well, I mean, look, for me, mate, the clear way they should have gone if they was going to redo The Exorcist, right, is firstly not bother, just let it go. Or if you're going to do it properly, you bring back Reagan as an adult with a family of her own and have the evil go after her daughter. And of course, she doesn't remember what happened to her in the original, but also have priests in it. That's the way you should have done it, right? It should be Reagan's daughter and the evil coming down the family lines.
See, I disagree. I think that's what's obvious and telegraphed. Is that idea. Like, how many times have we seen that before? Oh, it's now they're going after the hero from the first films, or not hero.
Kids.
Yeah. I actually prefer a little bit the tenuous link. I think if this was a better film, the tenuous link would have been to the Exorcist would have been enough. Yeah.
Again, the problem is all the actors who played the priests in it are all dead in the original, so you couldn't really bring any of them back, or
could have brought them back as demons.
No, because then we're getting into the whole AI thing.
Yeah. I was only joking.
The problem with these films are that they're relatively cheap to make, and most horror films do well at the box office despite the quality, especially with mainstream horror. You know, it's sadly with mainstream horror, it's sadly
Well, and especially if you put a popular
it's
title
all
on
about
it.
the IP, man. Yeah. So even if all genre fans don't like a series like Gordon Green's new planned Exorcist trilogy, they're still going to make money because the average cinema goer will go and see a scary movie at Halloween. Honestly, the masterstroke is naming the film after a holiday. You know, like Halloween itself, Friday the 13th. Any films named after seasons or days, you can always release a new one on that date in the future. So Universal have clearly thought, right, let's reboot The Exorcist with that same director in the same way. And people will go and see an Exorcist film in the cinema every Halloween, despite the quality of the film and the bad reviews. My only hope for the planned sequel, other than it not being made, is that Gordon Green actually steps away from the film and they get in a young writer-director who actually knows how to make a good possession Exorcist story and doesn't have such contempt for his audiences, thinking they can't accept a film that starts slowly and builds like the original.
I really just feel you hate this person.
I just,
we should get him on, interview him.
Oh, can you imagine? Yeah, it'd be like that clip of Adam. Have you seen that clip today on Twitter of Adam Driver being asked about?
Yeah. He's like, "Fuck
Ferrari.
you." No, yeah,
Fuck you. And then Twitter has just been awash. Twitter has been awash with people finding clips of like movie stars and directors doing that exact response. There's a brilliant one with John Carpenter where someone says, "Oh yeah, Escape from New York, brilliant. Escape from LA, what the hell happened?" And John Carpenter's like, "Fuck you." I was like, and everyone starts cheering and clapping at that screening. So that was cool. Right. Before we finish, David, I will do some positives on it. Leslie Odom Jr. is really good as Victor, the father of one of the girls. And both girls, Angela and Catherine, are played well by Lydia Jewett and Olivia O'Neill. I liked the start of the film in Haiti, and I thought, okay, they're going to take this in a different direction, but they didn't. And I think the film would, and as we've been saying throughout, the film would have been viewed critically much better if it was just a straight-ahead demonic possession film but not attached to the Exorcist IP. Because that was always going to set some fans against it, especially when they can't even fact-check the film properly and their bloody scripts. Having said that, ironically, I doubt this film would have made as much money at the box office if it hadn't been tied to the Exorcist legacy, even if they could have made a better film.
Yeah, my final thoughts are I think Jose would have something to say about the man's photography skills.
Well, unfortunately, I asked Jose if he wanted to be on tonight, and he's like, "I don't like horror," and so it's not his bag or something like that. So that's why Jose's not with us tonight. I don't know how we finish. I haven't got my last bit written, David. What do I say? I've got no intro. I've got no outro written. How do we finish this?
I know how we finish this, Neil.
The body and the blood?
No. We just do the Exorcist tune and let it fade to black.
Okay.
I can't think of how the Exorcist tune goes.
You was doing Halloween, wasn't you?
I was. How does it go?
And, ladies and gentlemen, David performing Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells with his mouth. Well, that's all the time we got for today, folks. We'll see you next time. Say goodbye, David.
Okay, I should probably say goodbye now.
We needed roads.